Hi everybody, welcome to episode 1, File Organization. Today we are going to talk about best practices to kind of keep yourself on track and moving as efficiently as possible. When you are about to embark on a big project, one of the things that I've seen over the years is the biggest cause for burnout is not very good file management. So creating a system so that you can not overwhelm yourself with the amount of digital assets that are going to accrue over the course of the project is key. So honestly, what I'll do is just create a template folder with a number of directories where I can actually create a home for the various stages and parts of the overall project, and then the assets are going to come into play. So for a graphic novel, the common ones will be color profile. So depending on where you're going to get the book printed, the printer will have a color space in which they are printing in, and you should be able to download those and load those in your software. This gives me a place to put that. File guidelines would be sort of any assets provided to you, single page templates, spread templates, whatever is going to potentially be used in the project that you're working on. A place for the script. The script itself is going to go through a number of revisions, and there could be sort of secondary material that is going to be also needed while developing the script. Again, this is just a place to put all of that so things don't get overwhelming. Interior art, this is key, and here, we have sort of progress, final, and then proof of concept pages. So for the progress areas where each stage of the art development can be stored. I am a big fan of sort of non-destructive development. So when you work on your thumbnails, put your thumbnails in there, but then duplicate those if you need to work on your pencils. Don't overwrite your thumbnails. When you're about to work on your inks, don't overwrite your pencils, duplicate those, and then work on your inks. This is just a safety precaution that, God forbid, if something were to happen, corrupt files or files to get lost, you always have sort of like a one step behind backup. And then you'll notice that the final art is in its own folder. That's important because that is identifying that the art is final. Even though the color folder would technically be the final art, there could be some changes. You could be working and someone you're working with would say, hey, can you make a PDF of the entire book? And I just wanted to make one last review before we consider everything final. And then there could be changes done here. This is just that moment to say, these files are duplicated, they're put in the final folder. These are the ones that should be used. It just, again, it prevents any sort of file confusion that's going to be happening. And there's also that idea that this is also duplicating what's happening here. So again, God forbid, there's some issues with the files. You still have these files here as a backup. And then any early development files that you're working on can be kept in the proof of concept stages. So, any like character designs, sort of early mock-ups in terms of developing your color palettes and so on and so forth. Cover has its own directory because a lot of files are going to come into play when you're figuring out what you want to do for your cover. So as you're doing research and getting inspiration, you might be grabbing graphics off the web and wanting to throw them in there. You might be grabbing stock images for inspiration or something. Who knows? But again, this keeps all of these assets contained so they don't start clouding up and getting in the way of all the other work that you're doing. Design elements, this is going to be a good place to store those things that you're going to need, sort of like the kind of the technical side of things. So if you're using InDesign or a separate layout program. This is a place where you can store those files. Fonts, many artists are creating fonts from their own handwriting. So if you're working on a project with multiple artists, this is a great place for everybody to stash their fonts, so it's easy to find, and you're not, like looking in subdirectories for everything. Any logos or miscellaneous assets, everything could be kind of just tossed into this folder. And early artist materials, like the very real part of the comics world is the means of trying to get it out into the world. So how are you going to be doing a Kickstarter program to raise money, or are you going to be setting up a website to showcase everything, or are you putting together a pitch to sell the idea to a publisher? This is a place for you to store all of those assets as well. So again, everything is put together in an organized way so that everything's easy to find, because one, we want to avoid file confusion, but you also want to be able to navigate your work quickly. You don't want to be sitting there spending 10 minutes fumbling around looking for something when you could actually be doing the fun part, which is creating the artwork. And then the one thing that I think is super, 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 super important, and the thing that I cannot stress enough, and I just don't see it enough, is backup. Backup, backup, backup. If you're working with a publisher should be providing you with the means of backing up your work in some capacity, whether they're using their own shared drive service like Dropbox or Google Drive, but then you should have your own, and you should have your own backup. So whether it's an external drive like I have here, Chaz, or Apple comes with its own shared drive service, so there's a Creative Cloud, or if you're using something like Google Drive or Dropbox, use your own. But you are about to embark on a long journey of creating a graphic novel or serializing a comic, whatever that is. Back it up, because as efficient and well built and as good as computers are these days, they still make mistakes. Programs are still not perfect. Look up Clip Studio. Clip Studio is randomly deleting files from projects. Don't get caught with that, without protecting yourself. So backup, backup, backup. So that's it for this first video, and I will see you next time. Bye.